amazing how I can hear people up in the mountains. They're high. I was meant to be there, but I got scared. Hello. Me. Cool as a cucumber. I was up there an hour ago. I walked around there, got to the top, and thought, absolutely not. It wasn't actually very beautiful up there. It looks beautiful from down here, but up there you're basically just surrounded by clouds. As a child, hello wind, as a child you kind of think clouds are going to be exciting to be in, and then you realise it's just wet fog. Hence the waterproof. Oh shit. This is my second trip out of 4 because I was scared to be on a boat in the winter. And because I got itchy feet, I had to get places. Figuring out, what I want to do as of next year, for example. And I was like, maybe I should just go mad and fly to New Zealand or something. But I've had just such an amazing time on this trip, not leaving the UK. It is a hard one to gauge what I want to do. Watch this space as I slowly figure out whatever the hell happens next.
With winter having a reputation for being tricky on a narrowboat, I decided that this time around I'd spend some time away and relish in the warmth of Airbnbs. Until recently, I'd spent 4 years in a 9 till 5 PhD with limited annual leave. Having submitted my thesis in the winter of 2023, this winter I finally had some free time to go off wandering again. So without further ado, may I present my 2024 travel diaries. I started my first trip with a Eurostar to Brussels. I can't say that this is one from the bucket list, but it just so happens to be where the train arrives at. Like many cities, it has something of a smokestack enthusiast nature, with the River Senne having a similar vibe to that of the Thames once you've passed Dartford. I continued to explore and found myself in a crypt. I then visited a chair museum. I think it was a chair museum. There was other weird stuff going on as well, to be fair. And then made way to the Atomium. Despite having only been constructed in the past 70 years, this is one of Brussels' most notable landmarks. Standing at an impressive 102 metres tall, it takes a tiny dump over the Big Ben, which is a pathetic 96 metres in height. You can reach the top via a spooky lift, and then explore many, but not all, of the 9 balls, or iron atoms, if we roll the idea that this was designed to resemble one unit cell of an iron crystal. Inside the balls, you can have another look at Belgium's industry, and in others, have the trip of your life, had they not searched your bag and confiscated any edibles on the way in. Having had my fill exploring the continental version of a TARDIS on acid, I then vacated the balls and went on to investigate the Van Gogh exhibition. This somewhat reminded me of a similar exhibit celebrating Gaudi that I visited in Barcelona a few years ago. The difference being is that the one in Barcelona was actually worth paying for. Having had quite enough of the city vibes, I then set off to Dinant. This 10th century town hosts some rather exceptional views of the River Meuse, hence the name, originating from Divo Nanto, meaning Divine Valley. I probably pronounced that wrong. Even with all of its divinity, it doesn't take long to explore this quaint little town, so with my GoPro set up, I then set off to explore the surrounding countryside.
Walking all day with my mouth on fire, trying to get talking to you. Walking all day with my mouth on fire, that's what I've gotta do. Trying to get talking to you.
One thing I learned is that this place is very castle-y and must be the breeding ground of all of Belgium's Christmas trees. I carried on strolling and then met a horse I quite liked. I think he liked me too, or maybe he just thought I had food. And with dusk approaching, I continued to my final spot of the day, another castle. I decided against venturing into this castle as it was slightly inaccessible. I then set off back into the town and met a friendly Dutch woman on the way. The conversation was all going fairly well, until she learned of my Scottish heritage and said that she had always wanted to visit Edinburgh. Anyway, I then visited Ghent and Brugge. I have little to say regarding these cities, other than that they are very canal dense, which for me provided a minimal change of scene. And the tourists in each had the same dreary, slow-paced walk and point at a fancy old building tone as those who used to get in my way when I was cycling back from Sainsbury's in Cambridge. I sincerely hope I had not become one of them. I think Bruges is a bucket list location for some people, but I dare say that I've discovered many a quaint canal village in the United Kingdom that easily trumps it. The chocolates were better here though. I then headed to Antwerp. This, and unlike the previous 3 cities, had a harsh industrial atmosphere that I have not witnessed since the days in which I'd run around Victoria Park and occasionally find myself accidentally stumbling upon the A12. That being said though, the river was impressive. Here's me looking at it in amazement. I can safely say that it has snowed on 100% of the days I've ever spent in Antwerp, all 2 of them. Following this, I then detoured to Leiden to visit a friend for the day and was shown a secret cafe, probably used to keep the Dutch safe from the English tourists. We also caught some fireworks, one of the rare occasions in which the Dutch were throwing them at the sky, rather than each other. My touring then resumed along with the snow, and I took myself into France. See how I got away without having to attempt pronouncing that? Lila? Okay. I found this to be a rather beautiful town, but it's hard to know if my opinion was just heavily warped by how pretty everything looked in the snow. Perhaps if I visited another time of year, I'd be indifferent towards the place.
Tanto amor, eu sei muito amor, muito amor.
Because it had been well over a day since I'd last encountered a canal, I then decided to board a train to Strasbourg. This is another quintessential canal town many folks pin on their bucket list. This one I'd say actually does have a 1 kilometre squared area, which is quite nice. And I enjoy walking down the medieval cobbled roads and watching the birds and pretending I'm in Beauty and the Beast. I'm the beauty. And if that wasn't enough excitement, I then went into Strasbourg's Modern and Contemporary Art Museum, which is creatively named the Strasbourg Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. I was particularly fascinated by this Renaissance painting that was hanging right by a car crash. I wonder what they were trying to say. The next day, with nothing planned before my 3 o'clock train journey, and having had the realization that I was only 6 kilometers away from the German border, I did the only thing I could think of at the time, and decided to take a winter stroll to a different country. This is a novelty for residents of southern England. The weather forecast had predicted crystal clear skies, which was catastrophically wrong, and the walk towards the perimeter got ugly before it got pretty, which is 1 point to Germany and 0 points to France. The bridge to Germany was very slippery, and had it not been for the fog, I'm sure would have provided some superb views of the Rhine. But on the other side of the border there was a massive observation deck, providing further opportunity at experiencing some glamorous views. This had a sign saying do not attempt to ascend in lightning, high winds or snow. As it happened, it began snowing and got jolly windy during my ascent, but I was in too deep at that point. I would admit, it did feel sketchy. Nevertheless, I made it to the top, and surprisingly enough, the fog cleared enough for me to be able to see both countries. I then made my way back down and walked to the train station. On my way, I passed chickens, fancy modern architecture, and something I'm very used to, spooky prancing canal fog. I then boarded the train and continued to Paris. I caught up with my friend Lucille. She's not one of these Canada geese, but she was with me when I took the shot, and it's all I have. I then spent my alone time in the city exploring somewhere new, Fondation Louis Vuitton, a posh-looking building that doesn't let you bring your own water bottles inside. Nevertheless, it had a thrilling roof terrace that I spent most of my afternoon pottering about on. The building was also hosting an art exhibition inside at the time, but I can't say it particularly excited me. Like romantic partners, these paintings were best enjoyed individually, and not all slung up on a wall at once with dozens of people staring and taking photos. With my first trip over, I took the Eurostar home, only to discover that each and every one of my houseplants had perished in the sub-freezing temperatures Britain had faced in my absence. After allowing myself 3 days to get over this, I then took a very scenic, albeit 2-hour delayed train journey up to St Andrews to visit my cousin. We larked about on the rocks and found ourselves entertained by everyone's favourite optical illusion, the spinning sandwich. This is all part of my annual pilgrimage up north to visit various friends and family who have scattered themselves across the country. I say that, some of them were born here, so I won't hold it against them. Next on the list was Glasgow, to visit my friends Rory and Violet. We took part in the Big Garden Bird Watch. I don't know my birds, but I've named them as accurately as I'm able to in the following video footage. The Pointy Yellow Boy, the 1,000-mile-per-hour Grey Dart, Long-tailed Companion Birds, Fluffy-tailed Imposter, Ned, 3 fluffy-tailed imposters, the Hungry Pecker, and the Common Wood Piggy Own. Following a superb roast, I then descended further south, and on my path visited friends Sophia and Billy and their absolute diamond of a doggo, Hector, or 10,000 square meters. Hector quite likes the beach, and his mummy and daddy. Finally, I set off to Sheffield to convene with New Midlands resident Oshin and learnt how to play table golf, or crazy pool, or whatever it is. We set ourselves the goal of potting every hole in one, if you don't count the dozens of failed attempts that came beforehand. Travelling around to visit friends is all very well, but one must appreciate that most people work Monday to Friday, which left me with a temporal void to fill during my trip. It just so happened that my route and dates aligned in such a way that I'd pass through one of Britain's wonders during this social hiatus, the Lake District. Shockingly, in my 28 years of living in this country, this is somewhere that I'd never visited, and here I was presented with the perfect opportunity. In sweet irony, I actually did find someone to join me, my wonderful pal Flo, featured here with our pre-hike dinner of bangers and mash. Not only did she source a gorgeous route for us, but she even drove us to the starting point too, and what a pretty drive it was. We parked up, had a pre-hike precautionary, which means poo, and waved goodbye to phone signal.
Let's get you setting off again on the fancy camera. I know, right?
We met several sheep. These are sheep, not goats as I referred to them in a previous video, and then later got yelled at by my cousin. Not even the cousin who's a vet. Who does she think she is? It was certainly challenging to walk with my breath taken away by these views. Wowza! We weren't fazed by the challenges we encountered, but I will admit that I was not expecting the climb to be quite as climby as it was. We reached our first summit, and I had a delightful time kicking around the quirky frosty grass hats, and Flo meanwhile had other places to be. With her being the keeper of spare electricity, my power bank had stopped working, I hastily followed. The sun began setting, and our legs grew weary, but we made it back down and headed home for an epic feast. With Flo having gone back home, I did my last hike alone.
Well, it's cold. I don't know where I am. So I'm about halfway through my second trip. The first... Don't really know what I have to say anyway. It's quite a big drop behind me, which is making me nervous. I see you rocking, don't fall. Little wind protection for the microphone there. I'll keep you warm at night. I think this isn't working. You wouldn't want to be falling down there. It's a nice... Oh, hello. I mean, that looks cool. that it's cold, I've decided against doing any more of what I'm doing. I should get home. Now the wind stops.
It had been a busy few weeks. I hadn't been away for this many days of the month since 2018, when I travelled around Europe for 2 months. But it's been different this time around. Back then, I spent most of my time in cities and meeting new people. On these trips, I've hardly met anyone, and here I am spending most of my time in nature instead. But I prefer the nature and the long walks to the cities. Perhaps I've changed. I think I'm starting to accept something. I'm not the George I was when I was 22. He was pretty happy-go-lucky and a fun guy, but he's gone, and I should stop trying to resurrect him. I know that I changed when Mum died. I'm a different man now. I'm more reflective. I feel like I spend more time inside my head, and I'd rather observe the world around me than be a part of its action. I keep seeing white feathers at the moment. I wonder if they're significant. I realise now they're just floating out of the hole I made in my down jacket because I walked into a barbed wire fence in Dinan. I know that I can still be joyful, just not in the same ways as before. I'm a whole new person to explore, and I will continue to unearth what makes me happy. You may realise now that this story is going nowhere, but that's okay. Nowhere is a perfectly pleasant place to be.
I would like to leave this city. This old town don't smell too pretty, and I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. And when I leave this island, I book myself into a soul asylum. I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. So here I go, I'm still scratching around in the same old hole. My body feels young, but my mind is very old. So what do you say? You can't give me the dreams that are mine anyway. You're half the world away. You're half the world away. You're half the world away. I've been lost, I've been found, but I don't feel down. You're half